Saryanu, Sasriyakal, and welcome to the Love, Laugh, Live Chat Show with myself, Gurdial Gacha, and Dav Ubi.
So, Pyar Kara Haso Te Jug Jug Jiyo Wala show. So, this show is about how to love with passion, laugh with pleasure, and live with peace.
ਤਾਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੋ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਿਲ ਨਾਲ ਹੱਸੋ ਦਿਲ ਭਰ ਕੇ and ਜੀਓ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ.
So my name is Devinder Ruby. I'm a life and spiritual coach, and sitting next to me my beautiful co-host
Gurdial Gacha, and I'm an empowerment and resilience coach. So we are both here to inspire and to help fulfill people's lives by sharing our unique experience and knowledge through the coaching that we both do. So, Dav, we've got an amazing topic today, and Dav is going to tell us all about it.
So we're going to be discussing today the uncomfortable signs when you are healing and becoming more in alignment with our God, higher self, which is Rab. So, in other words, I can explain this. Jado, when we're feeling koi takleef mehsoos ho rahi hai, this takleef is not a mistake. This is a sign that we're jada nazdeek ho rahe Rab de naal. So we're going to explain to you different ways we feel this takleef, through our environment, through our body and sensations, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but it's all becoming in alignment.
Yeah, so it's just telling us ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਾਈਫ ਲੀਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੰਦਰਲੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ. But yeah, so it's a really interesting topic. We've had a lot of fun creating this topic because
fun and learning.
Yeah, and
a lot of learning.
ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਚੂਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with examples that one gave, what kind of these signs are, this, the takleef ho raha. And as I was we were driving up to the show, and I thought of another example, and as driving behind Gurdial, and I saw this butterfly flying, and I thought, there we are, that's another powerful sign that an example that if you think of a butterfly, when it's obviously when it's a caterpillar Bella, and it's going through a transformation, a change, it's in that cocoon thing, and it's there for I don't know, for months, or is it weeks or months, and so it's in that tight place. And it's dark and it's uncomfortable, just like a baby in a womb as well, but it's going through some sort of transformation. The transformation, and it's takleef mehsoos ho rahi hai, you can't see the light, you're just surrounded with darkness. But then somebody said that, well, I don't want them to go through that takleef. Why don't we just break the outer case and let them fly? And but what happens through that takleef, it has to follow the process and respect the process, because jade jaldi we try to spare them from their grief. It hasn't had the opportunity to really build up that strength and courage and that threshold. So sometimes you'd have to let go of the resistance of trying to control a situation. So you got to respect the process. So when it's ready to now let go of that case and let itself free, the butterfly actually transformed into a beautiful butterfly, and then it just flew, and it looked so beautiful, and it just started to rise above all the madness and the chaos. I thought that's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah. I mean, ਇਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ butterfly ਹੁੰਦਾ, I mean, I don't know what the Punjabi word is. ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ transfer. Oh yeah, titli. Oh, I love that word. Titli is a great word. ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, before it's born, it has to go through so much difficulty. ਬਹੁਤ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਔਖਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ to get out of that cocoon to then become a butterfly. ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਾਈਨ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਵੀ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਾਡੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ change hona pena for us to become butterflies, I suppose, to be able to rise above everything, and for us to be able to fly free. But I like your analogy, the lily pond one as well.
Yeah, that's another one. Any transformation, any change, like think of the pond, it looks so beautiful, and the lilies, and everything looks still, but if you just put a rod in it and you start stirring it, and that's with us as well. When we, on the surface, we might look, our life's comfortable, looks easy, and when we're sort of like set in that comfort zone.
We're calm.
Yeah, we're calm because we become comfortable what's normal for us. But when we really need to grow and expand and do something that's for our highest good, we've got our potential that we need to serve in this life, that means we have to get out of that comfort zone. And that means that we have to deal with all the blocks and all the things that was preventing us to grow, like our fears, our beliefs, all our negative assumptions that I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not able to achieve that. There's something too big for me, and everybody else is there. So it's that when we're stirring the pond with the rod, it's bringing up all our insecurities, our fears, and all our doubts, and all our feelings of unworthiness. And that is when all that comes up, that's like the mud coming up. But that mud is actually, it looks uncomfortable, it doesn't look very nice, it doesn't look pretty, but that is actually coming up for us to observe, address it, and let it go and clean. It's like we're having a clearing done, and it's that is allowing us, and then we're able to connect more with our life path, our purpose, and our true potential. And that's another analogy, but it looks uncomfortable, it doesn't look pretty, it doesn't look nice, but those are the uncomfortable signs. But they're meant to, we need to see them before we can let go of them. And that's where it takes a lot of courage and a lot of acceptance, and sometimes just faith and trust and patience, all those virtues we have to sort of implement.
Yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful way of, kind of going back to explaining the comfortable signs, how we heal through them. But there are so many examples that we can give, and we're going to go through all of them, and we're going to talk together about them. Sometimes it's trauma. Okay time hunde life de vich koi bhi ho sakda. It could be like we're being bullied, or we're being ignored, we're being isolated, within our friends, family, the community, and we know that there's something not right. Sanu andro pata hai abhi kuch sahi nahi hai. Sanu changa nahi lagda. Whatever's happening within the community, within your family, something's not quite right. But kai bari assi darde kuch kende nahi. So we allow it to continue, and it continues hoi janda. But then there comes a point, holi thanu pata hai abhi kuch na kuch, something's got to change. Kuch asar paina karke thodi sehat te bhi asar pੈ sakda, thodi sarir te, but all on the outside. But it takes courage, takes time to be brave enough to actually address कोई भी situation ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ if we mention bullying ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਗਲਤ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, but sometimes you don't know who to speak to about it.
So like the uncomfortable signs here, because this is what the show is about, so we can recognize, to see we recognize and then these uncomfortable signs, and these comfortable signs sade fede waste. And so like you say in the relationship one, people you are constantly in connection with, and there's something that you're not being your true self, and that uncomfortable sign could be you just feeling frustrated or kidchutidiya, or you're just feeling like ghabrat or anxiety, or you're just feeling like sometimes you just don't feel well, you get headaches, and all these symptoms are saying that something inside me is telling me that I'm not really happy in this situation. I just feel so nervous around this person, or I feel nervous when I enter that room and those people are there, or I just feel like I want to wake up in the morning and I just don't want to go to that job, or I don't want to talk to that person. That's not mean you're being horrible. That's just that inner GPS, that guidance saying to you that something in you, you're not in alignment. Maybe your values, your beliefs are so different from the other person, but Bella, you just kept compromising them. You're just pretending that, Chaluga, my values don't mean anything. I'll do whatever they say just to stay happy.
And it's like what we mentioned earlier, being a people pleaser. And we're just talking about how, there's the feelings of emptiness, not feeling like you're being fulfilled. So it's just like when you're part of a crowd, but you don't feel like you really fit in. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned tribe. When you start off being part of the tribe, but then slowly, I know you've gone through quite a few friendship groups or.
And I think we all have. You have as well. And like we find ourselves like the more we do this sort of work, the more we sort of connecting with our higher conscious and sort of like trying to be truthful to ourselves, we find ourselves that we're changing energetically. And when we're changing energetically, the people that we were supposed around in contact with, we're not vibrating on the same frequency. So they somehow kuch na kuch ho janda, either there's ladai hundi klesh hunda, or they just decided to leave the job. So we find ourselves, they've moved away, and it happens naturally. And then we find ourselves meeting other people, and I find that through my life I've been around with so many different people, because every time I've changed my thinking, my just way of perceiving life, so I find myself changing. But the only drawback there that sometimes people do say well, I had the comment, right, saying that how come you never stick to one lot of group of friends? You're always moving, and they might perceive it as, don't you get on with them? They might perceive it as that, but there's me thinking, well, it's not. It's just that the more I'm thinking differently, and my beliefs and my assumptions change. I find myself attracted to a different tribe of people, and the way that we're in alignment and resonating, just like you and me. We didn't meet before until a couple of years ago, and we only met because we're in alignment now. You know, so
yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, because in order to, if you recognize these uncomfortable signs, it does mean there's going to be some conflict.
Yeah.
There's going to be judgment, and just like the comment that Dav's just made about, or don't you stick to the same kind of your friends and things like that, or I don't. But that shows that you're growing.
Yeah.
You've grown, and those other people, not through any fault of theirs, they may not be on the same page as you.
Yeah.
And that is where you're respecting yourself to think, actually, you know, those conversations or the time I spent was good.
Yeah.
But now I need to kind of go along with people who are kind of going to help me to grow even more. So you constantly, it's like being on a ladder. You kind of, you meet people along the way, and then you sort of go on to the next rung and meet different people, and it's all about growth, and we all grow.
But it happens organically, naturally, because you're not looking for these people in your space. And it's funny because the people who made those sort of comments like, oh, can't you hang around with the same people, you're always moving on, you've got a problem connected. But it's interesting because those same people, they haven't grown or they haven't changed their thinking. They're still stuck in their same beliefs and system and values, that they're only, because they're not changing, that's why they're surrounded by the same people. And maybe because, like you were saying earlier, maybe they fear addressing their needs and everything because they fear of being disliked or being judged.
Yeah, definitely.
So they're not going to be courageous enough to say, look, actually, I want to do things differently, and that's why they're stuck.
Yeah. I mean, if you imagine, all the men went to the pub. And if you imagine one guy saying, I don't want to go to the pub, that would be, you know, they would say really, really awful things and say, oh, patani, oh, apne team de gutte thalle, So you'd get a lot of backlash. And to be brave, and to be recognizing your uncomfortable signs, it is about being brave and being courageous, but also about being isolated, because all of a sudden you may not have those friends anymore, or they might freeze you out and say, oh, you know, because you've decided that you've grown, and like we've already mentioned, it's like a bit of an awakening. You can't go back. And once you've recognized that you've changed, you have to make a choice. It could be just a pebble saying to you, you're not happy in that group, so why are you continuing? But then you still continue because it's comfortable.
It's like they say, if you sachi dilo, you want to really truly love yourself and honor yourself, your values, you got to be okay with not being liked. And that's the uncomfortable side.
We mention that quite a lot. But this is where, you know, going from one group of friends to another, or even just deciding that you want to kind of withdraw, it takes courage. I mean, even to say to some, like if a group of people are going out to the cinema or for a meal and you don't really fancy it, even sometimes you feel like you have to lie. You can't be honest with people and say, well, actually I just want to stay at home. So even little things, so all of these, even from the smallest aspect, they're all uncomfortable signs that you're healing.
So this is a sign, these uncomfortable feelings are usually saying that you are deciding to honor yourself, or you're not honoring yourself. It works both ways. So our bodies, like I said, doesn't lie to you. It will give you, you know, the truth of what you actually are believing in and behaving. So the uncomfortable signs are usually a sign that you are deciding to, face and deal with what is in conflict with you. And usually the conflict is like, do I really be authentic, or do I just be attached to my old ways? And to be authentic, sometimes you have to feel the uncomfortable signs that you are growing.
And sometimes, you might decide that, all right, sometimes I'm going to compromise, but sometimes I don't want to. But it's just a case of making the choice that suits you, and not because you want to make everybody else happy. Because ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, whether it's your family, your friends, then that means you're not making yourself happy. And those are the choices that you kind of we're talking about. But anyway, going back to what we're saying as well, where you don't feel fulfilled, you know, the conversation might be that you've heard the same conversation every week. Oh, you okay? I'm okay. What have you been doing? So you don't feel like there's any like
substance or value in the conversation.
Substance value, and you feel like you know you either want to. You might be in your head saying, well, kill me now, you know, because you're kind of hearing the same thing
over and over again,
but you don't have the courage, you don't want to hurt somebody because that's their perspective on life, but you know that you're kind of, you need to do something different. You might still see them, but maybe not as often, but you're honouring yourself. But this is a sign for me that I need to kind of upgrade or just change my friends or do something that's more in alignment, where people talk about the things that I'm interested in, and this is what we found that we're both interested in. This kind of stuff where we feel like we're uplifting not only ourselves
but
and learning ourselves.
We're no in alignment, and that's a sign we know, but we lose concept of time. Sometimes the pata nahi lagta, you know, but we can be with people where we were just tolerating and thinking,
and you're looking at the clock thinking, oh my god, I need
that's
to
an
go
uncomfortable
home.
sign. You're not in the right place, you're not in alignment with this person, you're not on the same page, so this is an uncomfortable sign. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And you're not valuing yourself, so that's another sign, you know. And but it's brilliant, because when we come into this sort of awareness, it helps us to understand where our souls need to be. Does it need to be in this place right now, this environment? Because obviously if I'm not feeling good, I'm not meant to be here, because our soul's always telling us where we need to be on our path and who we need to be, you know, in sharing our next experience with.
I mean, I love this example, and I know I used to use this example with my children. There's three kinds of people, in my opinion. So you've got the people who will lift you up, you've got the people who will bring you down, and then you've got the people that want to keep you exactly where you are. So we know all who we're talking about. It could be anybody, and ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਬੁਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲਿਫਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਨੂੰ, ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਥੱਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਦਬਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਝੀ ਸਮਝ ਓਨੀ ਕੇ ਆ. So it's not anybody's fault, like you always say, there is no mistake, but ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, you know, ਕਰਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ when I'm with people who lift me up, I feel alive, I feel energized. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਵੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਗਿਆ.
ਜਾਨ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ.
Yes, exactly. ਜਾਨ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ conversation ਤੋਂ, ਹਾਸਾ ਮਖੌਲ, you know, you feel like you're alive. ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾ. And this is one thing we mentioned. You know, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ question ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਆ, they want to answer, they want to be part of the conversation. And then ਉਹ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ, like you might say, whether it's a husband and wife relationship, they want to keep their partner ਉੱਥੇ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਆ, because if they start to rise and the other partner doesn't, then they're in misalignment, and that happens with a lot of relationships, and it's completely normal. But unfortunately, this is where sometimes it can go to the point where, you know, there's no return. They always go to a point of no return, because you're just not on the same page, and that can create a lot of problems within any kind of relationship. But ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ, ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਛੋਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਮੈਂ ਨਾਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਵੀ ਆਹ ਕਾਤੇ, my ਨਾਨੀ used to say ਕਾਤੇ ਅੱਧੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ. But ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚੋ why, ਕਾਤੇ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ why. So ਜਿਹਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਆ ਕੁਛ, they're going to ask the question why. ਫਿਰ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੱਧਦੇ ਹਾਂ as a species. But that was a way of keeping children quiet. ਕਿ ਮੋਰੇ ਬੋਲੀ ਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, you know, ਕਾਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੁੱਛੀ ਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ. Why? Because sometimes they didn't have the answer, and they wouldn't say, well, go and ask so and so. It was just a way of manipulation, control, but in an unconscious way. And that's still continuing. And this is what we're here to do, is to help you kind of awaken.
So the uncomfortable sign here would be like, it's okay to ask why, and not to suppress and be curious. And out of curiosity we grow as well.
And we learn.
And you know, Yeah, and I used to be always the one ki why, you know, even though chup kar
चल बैठ
and exactly, and but you know, I don't know, meri aadat sigi, and I just kept asking why. But through that, me being persistent out of curiosity, it led me to where I am now, and I can able to understand a lot of things that I was driven from just my program and the way we conditioned, that I was living like a robot Bella, because it's just something whole of our community and society does, that we don't question why, because we think in a tribe to stay safe, you don't question why, because it's like a form of codependency. You know, we all depend on each other, and if one of us decides to ask why, it might take us out the tribe, or we might get disowned, and all of a sudden, you know, you asking questions that actually might threaten our tribe. So we will need to stay safe and do what we've always been told to do. Kuch badalna nahi hai, because the way we've been told how to do this keeps us alive. It's more like a survival way of living and surviving. But asking why, it might take you out of that survival mode, and you're going into some, you know, territory where there might be a threat of, you know, we might get attacked or abused or whatever, or you know, or we might get better than the rest of the tribe, or we might grow and the tribe might feel threatened that, you know, you're expanding, you're growing, you become more intelligent and wiser, so it makes the rest of the tribe feel like they're useless, you know, they're not good enough. So Otiv, that's the biggest fear, you know, that she's becoming, or he's becoming much more evolved and special, and makes us look less intelligent and stupid in that sort of maybe mindset, I don't know.
This is where I'm just remembering while we're speaking. In English, you might say, "Oh, I don't know who she thinks she is," or and in Punjabi, and this is another way of judging somebody in an unkind way. Be matlab asi chaਹੁੰਦੇ नहीं हैगे भी ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਸਿੱਖੀਏ, but that's okay. We understand because we're coming from our own insecurity. ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, you know, like we talk about shining your light, ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੋਝੀ ਜਾਂ your sole purpose, if you think of it like that is your sole purpose. But unfortunately, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸੋਝੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ ਰੱਬ ਵੱਲੋਂ, you need to do that because that is what is meant to happen. But sometimes we suppress it. ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆ ਕਰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ upset ਹੋਗਾ, upset ਹੋਗਾ, so we ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਦਬਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ. But what happens then, ਫਿਰ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, we start to become unwell, ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਤੇ ਅਸਰ ਪੈ ਜਾਂਦਾ, we might get depression ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਹੈ, we're not living a life that's authentic. ਅਸੀਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, but we're becoming unhappy ourselves. The ਹੌਲੀ over time it gets worse. So ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ that there's a definite sign that something's not right. You know, we're wearing this mask. ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉੱਪਰੋਂ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਠੀਕ ਹਾਂ, ਪਰ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ we know we're not. And this is where
that's
the
uncomfortable sign comes. Like you saying, all those physical symptoms, you know, stress, anxiety, all of that.
And this is where it to pata lagda bi sanu pata bi something's got to change. And I mean, I know you mentioned growing pains.
It's just like another example is let's say I want to start training, and I did. I started doing this couch to 5K. That's you know.
Oh, I did that as well.
But Bella, look, you have to feel the pain. That's where the uncomfortable sign. The uncomfortable signs, I'm getting stronger. There's more pain in my legs, the muscle ache, and everything, and the sweating, and that is all signs. They feel uncomfortable, but the uncomfortableness means that I'm getting stronger, and I'm benefiting from this. You know, that's one sign. Another sign, like they said, I want to become healthy, and this week I'm going to go on a detox. I'm going to just go on my juice diet.
Gala juice.
Gala juice pina, and it looks, oh, that's easy, key problem. But can you notice a couple of days later, thoda sir dukhan lag janda, you start to feel, you know, nauseous, and you feel like you're going to be sick, and you feel achy, and sometimes some people feel even feverish. So all these are signs that we are purging, and we are releasing the old toxins out of our body. And because as we're human species, we're only going to release toxin through physical symptoms like headache, backache, you know, or just a whole achy fever. But these are signs to say that we are becoming more cleansed and we're clearing the old toxins, just that the pond thing, everything's coming up. So it looks like we don't want to go towards being more in alignment with being healthy, but at the same time, the uncomfortable signs we have to accept. Some people then thinking, oh, I can't do this juice thing, I'm just going to go back to eating my normal food because I feel more.
It's too hard.
They say, I feel more ill than before. But you weren't. Your body just adapted to stay in that unhealthy way. But that's only temporary. You know, you can probably feel healthy probably the next 5-10 years, but if you decided to really persist and commit to being on a healthy diet, you can live another 50-70 years. But the first progress, you know, just starting the whole process, that's the hardest part. And that's where we need to take a lot of courage and be persistent. And if you really truly value and love yourself, if you really mean it, you can say when you really mean something, you want to do something, it will last more than 6 months. If it's anything less than 6 months, that means you weren't really convicted enough to do it.
So going back to ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ the uncomfortable signs, sometimes ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ community ਜਾਂ family ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਸਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, we might start doing substance abuse or any kind of abuse to ourselves. So ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ we might start drinking more, we might start going out with our friends more, ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਪੀਣੀ, you know, taking drugs, any kind of something that you're doing which doesn't really help you necessarily, but you don't want to face the problem. कि ਜਿਹੜੀ भी problem हैगी भी ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨੀ ਤਾਕਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ भी हाँ भी मैं ਉਹ ਗੱਲ मैं you know मैं sort out ਕਰਾਂ. So it's like confrontation. लोग चाहते नहीं हैगे कि जे मैं कुछ कहता भी, you know, it's going to upset the dynamics of the family. कोई कहूगा भी ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ना कोई trouble पाਉਂਦੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਆ by whatever she says. So this is a strong sign कि ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ life ਜੀਂਦੇ ਆ, you're not living it authentically, because what you're doing is you're running away from the problem. करके ਜਿਹੜਾ problem है कि प्यार दे नाल तुसी गल कर सकदे भी आहा मैनू इस चीज़ नहीं चंगी लगदी भी I need to change something, पर तुसी करके डरदे हैं भी पता नहीं अगले ने मेरे बारे की सोचना. So you don't. So instead of confronting the situation, you then go off and do something. You might go to the gym so much more, you might go out more. So it's just running away from the original problem. So the uncomfortable sign that you're healing can send you the other way, where you're just in avoidance of actually facing up to what you know you need to do.
No, so I can just explain this slightly different. So let's say I'm actually going to be strong enough now that I've had enough of a situation that I'm going to now stand my ground and speak my truth. But I was in avoidance. I was avoiding confrontation because I thought, you know, what's the point? You know, ऐमी लड़ाई होनी है किसी फिर 3-4 दिन बोलना नहीं है कि मुंह बना के फिर ही जाना फिर सारे ना मूड खराब हो जाना. You know, program आ रहा, you know, I don't want to spoil the atmosphere. So we go into this want to avoid confrontation. But really, you are actually not being in alignment of your truth because you're suppressing your needs and being authentic. So now, for me, thinking, okay, now I'm going to speak my truth. It doesn't matter key program, it doesn't matter, but it needs to be said now. So I'm actually going to allow myself to, you know, deal with the situation and speak my truth. But the uncomfortable sign here for me would be like, I know they're going to feel offended. I know they're not going to like what I say, and they're even going to talk about me to other people. They maybe not even talk to me for weeks. They'll probably just disown me. Maybe they said they don't want anything to do with it anymore. That's the uncomfortable sign. But then that is me growing and healing, because I know that I'm coming from an authentic place. But that uncomfortable sign is their behavior is reflecting back to me that I'm on the right path.
Yeah, and that's an amazing way of explaining it. I just remembered another Punjabi quote, and it's the ek jop so suk. So this is a way of keeping people suppressed. कि मतलब जे तुसी कुछ भी नहीं कहंदे, it's better करके everything will just carry on the way it has always carried on. And but it's also a bit like sitting on the fence. ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਦੇ ਸਲਾਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਦੇਣੀ, you know, somebody's going to be offended somewhere. We can't कुछ भी नहीं ऐसी कर सकते जिथे सारे जाने राजी होंगे. You know, so it's important to do what's good for us, our health, our mental health, and sometimes that does mean करके ਹੱਦ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੱਦ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਉਣਾ ਆ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਬਟ ਵੀ ਡੂ ਗੈਟ ਸਾਈਨਸ ਕਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਮਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਬੱਟਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ 'ਚ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਵੀ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਛ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਕੋਈ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਜਸਟ ਐਨ ਐਨਾਲੋਜੀ ਕੋਈ ਐਕਟ ਸੱਟਦਾ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਲੜਾਈ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਸੁਨਾਮੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਘਰ ਢਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਇੰਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਸਮਟਾਈਮਸ ਯੂ ਮਾਈਟ ਬੀ ਹੋਮਲੈਸ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਨੱਕ ਇੰਨਾ ਰਗੜਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਯੂ ਸਟਿਲ ਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਫਰਸਟ ਥਿੰਗ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਜੇ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੀ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਗਰਲੇ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਆ ਨਾ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੋ we're always getting signs that you know what if this doesn't feel right ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਇੰਟੂਇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਦਿਲ ਦੀ ਖੁਆਇਸ਼ ਆ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਗਨੋਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਸਟ ਟੂ ਮੇਕ ਐਵਰੀਬਡੀ ਹੈਪੀ ਪਰ ਐਂਡ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੀ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਐਂਡ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਵਾਟ ਵੀ ਟਰਾਈਂਗ ਟੂ ਸੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਨਕੰਫਰਟੇਬਲ ਸਾਈਨ ਹੈ ਟੂ ਅਵੋਇਡ ਬਿਕਮਿੰਗ ਹੋਮਲੈਸ ਵਿਚ ਇਜ਼ ਜਸਟ ਐਨ ਐਨਾਲੋਜੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਰੇਵ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਕਰੇਜਸ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਲਓ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੰਗੀ ਲੱਗਦੀ or where you need to move away from a situation.
Yeah, and another thing you were explaining earlier on about when we're ignoring these signs when we're not being truthful apne sachiai de na assi nahi jinde sochte whatever then we do get you know signs from the universe like a knock on the door saying or pehla knock on the door you're not being truthful you're not in alignment and jad always ignore kar dinde a fir koi you get an brick hana open it brick and then we get that and then we ignore that and then it just builds up so these uncomfortable signs are saying to us you know you got to let go of your old way of functioning and thinking and believing yourself you know your relationships to yourself and the world because you're not incongruent with your truth these are uncomfortable signs like a wake up call jago get up you know and if you keep ignoring them and they will come up to us like physical symptoms fir koi bimari aa jandi hai and then if you know not bimari just within yourself it could be someone you know they experience an illness and so these are all signs that you know that we are being told to wake up and come back to our truth and you know we can't ignore them and you can choose to ignore them but why do that when you know this is going to build up and you're going to deal with something so horrific at the end but yeah that's it happens to all of us I know it's happened to me when I've and my signs that I've ignored obviously is like my inner sensations in my body you know like they're always giving me guidance and you know they're like GPS properly and so when I have ignored those signs and then something will happen in the outer world something traumatic and you know that I would have avoided that honani siga already it's like an intuition a gut feeling that's the authentic part was already telling us a situation where I needed to be more truthful to myself to the I wasn't and I kept ignoring it and then it would come as a physical you know outside of an experience that I had to deal with I couldn't run away from it
I mean excuse ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਇੰਨੀ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਬੈਠਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਈਕ ਕਰਦੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੈਂਸਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਈਕ ਕਰਦੀ ਉੱਚਾ ਨੀਵਾਂ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਸੋ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਚੂਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ प्रॉब्लम आपे चल जानी है इट्स गोना गो अवे सो इन आवर माइंड असी इदा सोचते हैं भी जे मैं गल ना की भी आपे मसला हल हो जाना हो भी सकता है इट कैन हैपन भी प्रॉब्लम जी भी कोई प्रॉब्लम हो कि इट कैन गो अवे बट द रियलिटी इज इट रियली डजंट करके ਅਸੀਂ we're human beings and we're supposed to evolve ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਸ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਕਰੀਏ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਿ we're not just you know ਘਰ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ you know ਖਾਣਾ ਬਣਾਤਾ ਸਫਾਈ ਕਰ ਲਈ ਜੌਬ ਤੇ ਚਲ ਗਏ you know life is so much more rich ਪਰ ਕਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਸੋ ਯੂ ਜਸਟ ਗੈਟ ਸਟਕ ਲਿਵਿੰਗ ਦੈਟ ਲੂਪ ਆਫ ਅ ਲਾਈਫ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਐਵਰੀ ਸਿੰਗਲ ਡੇ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਸੇਮ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੋਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੰਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਫਰਾਈਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਲਾਈਕ ਦੇ ਵਰਕ ਰੀਅਲੀ ਹਾਰਡ and they're just waiting for the weekend ਤਾਂ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਜੀਣੀ ਹੈ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਤੇ ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ 5 ਦਿਨ ਲੰਘੇ what have you done with the 5 days so it's almost like your life you only come alive for those 2 days at the weekend so the uncomfortable sign is waiting for the weekend. You know, that is your sign to say something needs to change. कुछ change करना चाहिए मैनू कि मैं की चाहता करके रब ने सानू कल्ले कल्लियां नू लो दित्ती है कोई you know बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़िया तोहफा दिता है whatever that gift is we don't know but ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਸੋਚੋ ਵੀ what is my gift not just to others but to myself then I can share it. But if you start really slowly just doing small things hauly you realize that that small thing had a big impact on somebody else's life but it's that uncomfortable feeling of be log menu hassuge ja kahoge pata nahi ki kardi hai pata nahi apne aap nu ki samjhde hai. So it's those judgments that keep us in a small state of mind because we're not willing to address anything because we're worried what people think about us. But jida ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਰੋਟੀ ਬਣਾ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ you know ਘਰ ਚਲਾ ਦੇਣਾ we have to do that ourselves.
Yeah. So another example of uncomfortable signs that we're growing and we're healing. So let's say you dealt with a confrontation. You actually thought I'm going to address this situation, and they say something to you. They then ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੰਦੇ that ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ and you feel experience some sort of emotion. You feel hurt. You feel sad. You feel offended. You feel gussa. So actually it is an uncomfortable experience, but it's a sign that they the way they behave, they've allowed you to deal with that emotion. That emotion is a way that's just coming up now to be released, and that's an uncomfortable sign we're healing, we're growing, because they've allowed us to be aware of it so we can address it and be with it and allow it to release. That's another sign. So all these uncomfortable signs is a sign we're healing. That's what this is all about, and we come in more alignment, and some people might say, why can't you just come in alignment feeling blissful all the time? I don't know, it's just I think we're here as human species to experience all spectrums of emotions, and it's just how the meaning we put onto what's good feeling, what's bad feeling. There's no such thing as good or bad feeling. The uncomfortable signs is we called it that, but really it's not bad. It's just the meaning we put onto it. So when somebody triggers you and they say something, when you decided to confront them and it makes you feel sad, it makes you feel rejected, it makes you feel not good about yourself, that is all that's coming up, because that's only coming up because we already believe that about ourselves. So that's when it's an uncomfortable sign you are healing, because you allowed yourself to be with it. We don't go into healing when we decide we're going to ignore that sign. We think, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel the anger, I'm going to do something, I'm going to avoid it. And when we avoid it, then we don't want to feel it, then we've sort of put a block and we've gone stuck into the old way and we're not going into alignment. So the uncomfortable signs, we allow ourselves to feel it fully and saying, well, I don't want to blame them, because we normally do. I blame them because if they didn't speak to me like that, this wouldn't have happened to me. But the good thing is, when we got into healing, thinking, thank God they behaved that way, because now I know that I did have that gussa in me. I didn't realize I was holding on to that much resentment, that much hurt. That's the uncomfortable sign, but at the same time we're healing.
Yeah. So if we think about it in terms of breakdowns in relationships, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਵੇ relationship, it could be friendship, it could be husband and wife, it could be children, siblings, anything. Sometimes ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ change ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ, so we're going from the uncomfortable sign to now kind of starting to live a more authentic life, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੱਚਾਈ ਅਗਲੇ ਦੇ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਦੱਸਦੇ, you're speaking your truth. That can cause problems, because ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਉਹ like ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ change ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, because they're not ready to change with you. But that's still okay. It's like we keep saying, it's okay not to be liked. ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਖੁਸ਼ ਕਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ, but we still need to honor ourselves. So along the journey, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ relationship ਨਹੀਂ ਸਹੀ ਪਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ, then following that, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to get judgment. ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਮਿਹਣੇ ਮਾਰੂਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਘਰੋਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੁਛ ਕਹੋਗੇ, ਬਾਹਰੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੁਛ ਕਹੋਗੇ, but as long as ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, you're not consciously hurting somebody, you're doing it for the greater good of yourself first, ਤਾਂ ਉਹੀ ਫਿਰ ਅਸਰ ਬਾਹਰ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ बाकी लोग कहते भी yes, you're a strong independent person who values who you are, but sometimes it takes a difficult journey to get to that, and you never actually arrive because it's always coming up. You just mentioned blissful. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਿਨ ਰਾਤ ਪਾਠ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, like you might do 12 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours, you still have to live your life. You know, before that and after that, you still have to come into the world and live your life. You know, khana bhi kisi hona, peena bhi kuch, you know, ghar bhi chalana. So you can't even get away with it. So even that's uncomfortable. So you might be in bliss for 6 hours of your life a day, which is brilliant, because some people never experience it. But you still have to understand that in order to get that 6 hours bliss, something must have had to change in order to get to become that blissful. Does that make sense?
But it's because how the universe works, that even when a new star is formed, there's a chaos before before a new star. So anytime we're growing, like even like there's a seed we plant in the ground, you know, before it just germinates, it's surrounded by the darkness, and it has to crack in a dirt, and it's dark, and it feels isolated, it feels alone, it feels like there's no one around. So that seed, in order for it to grow, it just needs to have faith and just keep looking upwards, and upwards in the sense that it means it's a sign it's growing, it's going to evolve, and it's going to be but then it has to go through the process of when the shell has to crack, and holly through patience, and it's going through an uncomfortable experience, but that's the way how nature, humans, universe grows and expands, and it looks uncomfortable, but yet the seed does not complain, or the nature doesn't complain. It does have no resistance. It just has a lot of faith, knowing that all is well. And we got to remember all is well when we're feeling uncomfortable, because that's where the growth is coming. The growth doesn't come when we constantly want to be in blissful state. It just doesn't work, because we want to be a blissful state, then there won't be this planet or this earth. But even the universe even expands through chaos. You know, that's just the way it is.
Life is, then there's boundaries. Once we start to realize that we want to start honoring ourselves, and we recognize these uncomfortable signs, so then sanu ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਥੇ ਫਲਾਣੇ ਥਾਂ ਜਾਣਾ, ਫਲਾਣੇ ਥਾਂ ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ, you might think actually ਮੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਕਰਦਾ ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾਣ ਨੂੰ, and that's where the old you एकदम ready होके चल जाना जिथे भी किसी ने कहना सी तुहानू जाण नू ਜਾਂ कोई काम करन नू, but the new you, the person who's gone through the uncomfortable sign, has decided no, actually मेरा आज दिल नहीं करना, but the other person who they say it to might be offended, but that's not your problem anymore, because you've done what feels right for you. So you know, ਹੋਊਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਔਖਾ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ, but still you know you're doing what's right for you. ਤਾਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਅਗਲੇ ਵੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਵੀ that's good, they've got the courage, they've got the stamina and the way to say something. ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾ ਕਹੋ, you know, you don't have to get into some kind of conflict, it doesn't have to be a confrontation, but you can still honor yourself through love, self-love, and loving the person who you're speaking to, and you know, and that person will understand, but it will take time. And it's just putting those boundaries in place.
Exactly. And sometimes I've been asked before, thinking, tu kenu mandiya? You know, people say that, don't they? And then I say to her, like, my guru is all the, you know, difficulties I've had, you know, the challenges, because they help me to grow. Not the guru that's made me feel good all the time, you know, give me a Shiva blessing, making me feel good. I didn't grow from that. That just temporarily just felt nice. But what really helped me grow, my guru, is my challenges. All the things that made me uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, they're the ones that helped me to expand and grow and be more in alignment with my truth, because they helped me to recognize my old programming, my old beliefs, my old assumptions, things that I used to think was me, my way of thinking how the world is supposed to be for me. And I realized it was just illusion, it wasn't the truth, it's something that I was just programmed, conditioned from the environment when I was little. So my gurus then, which is my challenges, helped me to break free from those old beliefs, and they made me think differently, perceive differently, and create a new story in my mind of who I am, and that's changed my mental diet and everything.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful way of explaining it. You know, we have to keep changing our clothes as we're growing. So it's almost like koi cheez hundi hai within, you know, some, I don't know, clay, and the clay outgrows the oven. Or I don't know. I don't think that's a good analogy. But if you think about the phoenix that comes out of the fire, Holly, it realizes it doesn't want to carry on living the mundane, boring, same thing every day. But something's got to happen. Something big has got to happen for it to be able to feel like, yes, I'm strong enough to face whatever challenges are in front of me. Because ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ challenge ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਔਖੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਉਂਦੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੋਂ. ਕਦੇ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, you know, you might lose a loved one, but through losing that loved one, you then go on to helping so many other people, and maybe that was your life purpose. Through that really difficult time in your life, because you felt that pain, you can now help hundreds, maybe thousands of other people. But we don't realize that. We don't realize that that is our life purpose. So sometimes the most difficult times are our biggest lessons, and they are our most uncomfortable signs that help us to grow the most, because we wouldn't have done it had we not have been through that experience. Je oh sanu inna zyada okha time aunda nahi na aunda fir oh kam assi karna hi nahi saga. We would have just carried on doing what we'd always done, but all of a sudden there's something within you kuch hai thode andar ke andar भी मैंने तो आदक पहुंचा है पर मैं लोगों की help करनी है, whoever's experiencing this. So we can give you lots of examples of that, but थोड़ी सोच भी बदल जाती है, because when you've been through such a difficult experience, you have to change. तुसी जेरे लोग उत्थे ही रहंदे आ, you know, 20 साल पुराने 30 साल पुराने, they haven't grown, but वो भी औखा है उन्हां लई. Staying in the same place, they may not have grown you know, themselves, but their bodies have grown, you know, their hair still carried on, their nails, so they're still growing, but the perspective may not have continued to grow, and unfortunately that can cause a problem, not only for them but for all of their families.
This is an interesting thing, because when I work with my clients, and my clients will sometimes say to me, I don't know, I woke up today and I'm just feeling so much of all this anxiety. I feel like I just want to cry, and I don't know why. Or something must have happened. They had an issue with the family member or something, and I don't know where it came from. All of a sudden, I just feel like I feel angry, and I feel sad, and I feel frustrated. And I usually say to them, this is good. This is so good, because you know, otherwise you wouldn't have addressed all this stuff that's coming up. What's coming up? That means you are purging. Purging the matlab hega, you are now, then you are, it's like you're vomiting out. You get blocks, old negative energies coming out. But it wouldn't have come out if that incident or situation didn't happen. You know, somebody didn't say that to you the day before. You know, it made them feel quite sad, or made them feel not loved. That is something that's coming to purge out. So that's the uncomfortable sign that purging means the old way of thinking or the emotion is coming out, and something has to happen. It won't purge. So I always say to them, this is a very good sign that something's coming up, but don't judge it, don't make it wrong, don't go into blame. Just allow yourself to sit with this. Take your time away from the situation where it happened and come back into yourself, because always is an inside job. It's not the other person anymore. They just help you to bring that up. And now allow yourself to sit with it and love yourself and be compassionate, and think of the emotions or whatever's coming up as like a little child. So now you're going to say to that little child, I'm with you. I'm not going to ignore you. In the past, I've learned to distract myself from you, going into the story, going to the blame, you know, keep myself busy. But now you're my child. I'll never do that to you. I'm going to sit with you until this feeling starts to change, transmute back into love and compassion.
I mean, that's just amazing what you've just said. I mean, and I just wanted to add to that कि साडी लाइफ दे विच लेसन आउंदे आ पर असी पहली बारी कदे पहली बारी सिੱਖਦੇ नहीं हैगे, but that same lesson will keep coming up. So ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਦੁੱਖ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਗਨੋਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਿਹਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਦੁੱਖ you just end up carrying it to the next relationship. So ਜਿੰਨੇ ਚਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਹ ਦੁੱਖ ਕਾਹਤੇ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੋਂ, it will keep happening. So please be mindful of that. That uncomfortable sign is trying to tell you something. You know, that something needs to change, and that's where you've got to address the issue. It's not about the person who said something to you, it's about how you feel about yourself, or how you've always felt about yourself, and this is just your way of cleansing that out of your body.
Just think of that person as the rod in the pond. That rod is the person. On the surface you might look, you have a loving, beautiful relationship, and then that person says something and all the stuff is coming up to be cleared.
And we're coming to the end of the program. We really hope you've enjoyed this. But one thing, we've both got different things that we wanted to say to you, but my thing is, life is a roller coaster. The song, life is a roller coaster, you've just got to ride it. कि मतलब life है ये एक बड़ा सारा झूठा, तुसी choose करो, तुसी बहुत ज़्यादा बड़े ते जाना, या तुसी उन ठीक कपड़े विच जाना है,
गोल
तुसी गोल जाना, पर ये सारे थोड़ी मर्जी है, तुसी choose करो भी किद्दां दी तुसी life अपनी जीनी है.
So next week we're going to discuss more about uncomfortable signs, because there's so many different ways of experiencing them, and please, thank you so much. Umeed hai tunu show sada pasand hai, and we love doing this because like I said, assi vi naal di naal sikhdiyan rehndiyan, and we just love, laugh and live.
And don't forget, whatever happens, you have to keep moving forward. Whatever you're doing, you can't go back. Je thanu aha ho gayi ya soji mil gayi ya aa gayi ya, just keep moving forward.
Yes.
So thank you so much for watching. Our beautiful, our amazing, what we love doing. Love, laugh, live, and Sat Shri Akal.
Sat Shri Akal, thank you.